Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our this really great presentation. I want to thank Angela Griffin, who's going to give us a background and kick things off for us today.
Good morning, and as John has said, thanks for joining us today. My name's Angela Griffin. I'm with Coles Together. Coles Together is the economic development organization for Coles County. And I'm here today representing the Business Navigator Alliance of Southcentral and Southeastern Illinois. We have a great presentation for you today. We are going to discuss local apprenticeship opportunities and then training assistance programs that can help with apprenticeships, which is a topic that many have requested that we revisit, as we already had one webinar in our series on apprenticeships early in the series. So I think a lot of folks are interested in this. We're excited that we could bring in some experts today to give even more information on apprenticeships. Our experts are from the local workforce investment area 23. We have Jamie Corda-Hadjaoui, who is the Director of Workforce Investment, working in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act parameters, and she helps assist provide services through LWIA 23. Also joining us is Nate Carlson, the Apprenticeship Navigator, who will talk about different apprenticeship opportunities and how he's working with companies in our region to establish apprenticeships for their employees. Next slide. Just a quick background on what the Business Navigator Alliance is. For those of you joining us for the first time in our series, we're a 6-county regional collaboration. We work together through a small business community navigator grant, and our members include Coles Together, representing Coles County, the Sullivan Chamber and Economic Development Organization. Lori Miner is the president of that organization. The Crawford County Development Association, led by Risa Shaner. The Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce, led by Nora Swalls. Paris and the Paris Economic Development Corporation, led by Bob Colvin and Freddie Schmuddy. And of course, the Effingham Regional Growth Alliance, led by Courtney Yockey. So our group is in charge of professional outreach and technical assistance to businesses in our communities that are eligible for, interested in, and applying for local, state, and federal programs. And our mission is to help make sure that those businesses are competitive when they're applying for those resources, and to help position businesses so that they can accelerate their recovery from pandemic-induced setbacks. Next slide, please. So if you see the map to the side of your screen, you can see where the Business Navigator Alliance is located. We host a webinar each month, and we typically hold them, unless there's a holiday, on the last Thursday of the month. So mark your calendars. There'll be more webinars in the future. You can visit our website at ilbusinessnavigators.com. While you're there, you can sign up for a newsletter that talks about the activities we're working on. It'll also let you know about various outreach events and office hours, technical assistance that we can provide one-on-one. And you can also keep track of the webinars that we're hosting and register for those there. Next slide, please. So I'd like to give you a little bit of background on our presenters today. As I mentioned, Jamie Corda-Hadjaoui has served as director of the Local Workforce Innovation Board since 2020. During her time there, she has advanced the mission to strengthen the local workforce and connect the employers in our communities with job seekers that have the skills they're looking for. Prior to joining LWIA 23, Jamie developed strong federal grant writing experience, as well as a passion for strengthening the economy through career and technical education, working at Lakeland as their Perkins grant specialist. In her background, she spent more than 7 years in sales and property management. She's also developed an understanding of human resources, having worked at the Bergner's department store, and she's polished her management and operations abilities over 3 years with Arby's in Rantoul. After spending a decade working in training and supervisory positions, she fully understands how important it is to help job seekers access the education and the training to eventually become employed and succeed in the labor market in ways that support the businesses and the labor force that they're looking for. She rounds out her accomplishment with education accomplishments, earning an associate degree at Parkland, as well as both a Bachelor of Science in Business and an MBA from Eastern Illinois University. Our other expert presenter today is Nate Carlson. Nate is a community educator and student advocate, and he's proud to be stepping into his somewhat new role as Apprenticeship Navigator with the LWIA 23. He joined that organization in April of this year. As the Apprenticeship Navigator, it's his role to serve as a consultant to businesses in our communities, as well as be a liaison to the Department of Labor. His responsibilities include collecting, aggregating, and disseminating local workforce data. So if there is information that companies are interested in related to wage rates and job classifications, Nate is a resource for them in that regard as well. He earned his undergraduate and master's degree in communication at Eastern. He's developed a critical understanding of digital media and its impact on our political economies. And then after receiving his degrees, he was fortunate enough to have worked at Eastern Illinois University's Booth Library as the regional coordinator for broadband ready digital literacy. He developed there a train the trainer curriculum for digital literacy education, which he delivers to local educators and librarians through a series of fairly intensive workshops that he held over the summer of 2021. So both of these experts have terrific and diverse background that helps them deploy the resources that they have for the benefit of all the communities in our region. And now that I've given you everything you ever needed to know about either one of them, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie. And I think it's a tag team type of presentation today. So Jamie and Nate, I will let you take over.
Thank you so much, Angela. As Angela said, I'm Jamie Corda-Hadjaoui, the Director of Workforce Investment at Lakeland College for LWIA 23. And I'm very happy to be here today with you all to talk about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, or as I'm just going to slur it all together, and it's WIOA. So there's going to be a whole bunch of acronyms and alphabet soup coming your way, but then I take it a step further and I make it into its own word. So I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to learn more about the best kept secret in the area. And go ahead and advance slide, please. So the presentation flow today, we're just going to talk about WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, give you a little bit of background there, who we are as LWIA 23 or LWIA, Local Workforce Innovation Area, who our partners are, our services. And this is important because one of our services is apprenticeships, but it can stand alone or it can be used in conjunction with our other services. So I'm going to take you through the background of WIOA, our general services, and then Nate is going to talk to you in a more in-depth dive into apprenticeships. And then we'll just go over some outcomes that LWIA 23 has brought to the area, and we'll open it up for an FAQ session. So go ahead and advance slide, please. WIOA is legislation that's designed to strengthen and improve our nation's public workforce system and help get Americans, including youth and those with significant barriers to employment, into high quality jobs and careers, and to help employers hire and retain skilled workers. There are 6 broad goals of WIOA that I won't go through all of them in depth, but they include increasing access to education and training, creating a comprehensive high quality workforce system, improving the quality and labor market relevance of workforce investment and economic development efforts, promoting improvement in the structure and delivery of services, increasing prosperity of workers and employers, I love that one, and reducing welfare dependency while increasing economic self-sufficiency. So some really awesome goals, wonderful things. WIOA, it's federal legislation, which whenever they're asking us to do something or telling us to go do something rather with legislation, they do have to fund it. So that's where we come into play, LWIA 23. We are a funding source for those training and education opportunities for the local workforce. Please advance slide. So who is LWIA 23? Who is workforce investment? We are. And who we are is the local Workforce Innovation Board. When the Department of Labor gives out that grant funding from that WIOA Act, they give it out to each state. Then from there, the state of Illinois, through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, they have divided the state into 22 local workforce innovation areas, and we are number 23. I know, funny how that works. They've combined some, but we are number 23 of the 22 areas. So within our area, we take those, we serve 13 counties, and we have representatives from each of those 13 counties on our local Workforce Innovation Board. So that board, the director, which is myself, staff, which includes Nate, and then also Tony Lowe, our incumbent worker training guru, and our Debbie Whitaker, our financial coordinator, and then our service provider as well, CEFS. You're going to hear more about them later, but all of us together make up LWIA 23. You are also going to hear about LWIA 23 as a geographical region. So that is the 13 counties you are seeing on your screen now, from Moultrie County over to Edgar, down to Lawrence County, and then back over to Marion County, and just about everything in between. We do have office locations in Mattoon, Vandalia, Effingham, Centralia, Olney, Robinson, and Lawrenceville. So that is 6,500 square miles of geographic region that we are serving. And that is one reason why we have a great service provider, because my small staff of just us 4 can't be everywhere all at once at the same time. So we rely heavily on CEFS and their outreach coordinators to deliver services for us. Some of you may not be from any one of these 13 counties that you see on the screen, and that's okay, because there are other LWIAs across the state. They're doing very similar things to what we are doing. The processes might be different, but the end goal is all the same. So if you are not in our local workforce innovation area, just reach out to me and I'll put you in connection with the appropriate area for where your business is located. Go ahead and advance slide, please. So I already talked to you about the 6 broad goals that WIOA wants us to achieve, and thus those goals have influenced our mission. And our mission is to create a workforce talent pipeline, connecting people with sustainable employment through our training services. To meet that mission, we employ several strategies, including work-based training, industry recognized credential attainment, support of disadvantaged individuals, business and sector partnerships, and collaboration with local employers and local education institutions. Go ahead and advance slide. So partners, that's where I'm at. We want to work with just about everyone. You can see the list there, from local employers, higher education, economic development organizations, the Illinois Department of Employment Services, adult education programs, labor unions, community-based organizations. Like, we partner with everyone. All of these people, all of these entities and organizations, they have a stake in workforce development. Workforce development affects everyone, and we could not advance our mission without partnership. So it's really important to us to continue to develop new partnerships and to continue to strengthen existing partnerships as well. Advance slide, please. I did talk to you just a little bit earlier about CEFS. And again, I kind of just slide those all together. So CEFS, they are our service provider. They are an integral element of LWIA 23. So they are the boots on the ground for WIOA programs. CEFS manages and coordinates individual cases of people participating in WIOA programs. And for most of our services, CEFS is the point of contact. They excel at outreach, and we owe most of our program success to their career planners. Remember all that ground we cover, all that 6,500 square miles? That's the career managers are spread out across that region to be able to bring those services even to those in the most rural of our region. So SEFS is not limited to just WIOA services either. They provide a whole variety of community action services and assistance to all walks of life. And I highly recommend you check out what they have to offer. You can visit their website at cefseoc.org for more information. Advanced slide, please. All right, so now you know a lot about WIOA and its goals, and probably more than you really wanted to know, honestly, but I wanted you to have that good foundation of why we're here and what we're doing. And it sounds great, but now you really want to know how WIOA can help you. So let me help clear that up a bit. When we act on the strategies that we talked about a few slides ago, the results are our service programs. And I apologize, it looks from my screen, it looks like the slide did not translate over very well. So ignore it for just a moment and I'll walk through some of our programs. We do offer several services. Some are focused on the job seekers, some are focused more on employers, and a few really target market both. But all of our programs are mutually beneficial to both job seekers and local employers. And they're pretty amazing. And sometimes they even sound like they're too good to be true. But I assure you, they're very real. Each program is unique from the others, but they all have the same end goal in mind, strengthening the workforce. All of the programs ultimately benefit both employers and employees. But if this slide looked right, you would see a diagram talking about incumbent worker training, on-the-job training, youth work experience, and apprenticeships and rapid response as well. So we will just go ahead and cut to the next slide to talk a little bit about incumbent worker training. This one is important. I want you to keep this in mind as we get into Nate's part of the presentation, because this is where we can bring two different services together to help fund each other. So what incumbent worker training is, it's a skill upgrade. It provides both employers and workers with the opportunity to build and maintain a quality workforce and increase both participants and companies' competitiveness. Incumbent worker training is a type of work-based training and upskilling designed to ensure that the employees of a company can acquire the skills necessary to retain employment and advance within the company, or to acquire skills necessary to avert a layoff. Incumbent worker training is responsive to the special requirements of an employer or a group of employers in partnership with training providers. So the incumbent worker training services, they are not cookie cutter. The company, you as local employers, you sit down with LWIA staff, namely it would be Tony Lowe. He is our incumbent worker training guru. He knows everything about it inside and out, and he really walks you through the whole process. He sits down with you, listens to what you need, helps you identify your training needs if you're not even sure what those quite are yet, and then guides you through that whole process and makes certain that your organization receives reimbursement for training costs as efficiently as possible. So what this does is your employee gets training to develop a new skill, and LWIA 23 pays for the training. We don't tell you who has to provide the training. We don't tell you what kind of training you need. We help you figure that out if you don't know, but it's all designed by you, and we just facilitate your achievement of that. So we help pay for it. You determine your needs. Like I said, you pick your own training provider, and then we write the check. So this one, it's important to know, this is for your current workers. They've been theoretically on the job already for about 6 months, and they've got potential. You need to move them up to a new position, and then we can backfill that new vacancy because your company is growing. So the way to be eligible for incumbent worker training, it's dependent on the business as long as you're in good standing with the state of Illinois. And if you were not in good standing with the state of Illinois, you would know. You wouldn't even have to ask. So as long as you are in our region, we can definitely look into helping you with some incumbent worker training. Next slide, please. So on the job training, this one, again, super important. Nate is going to refer back to this one, so I want to make sure you have a good understanding of it. This is our skills gap training. This is a little bit different from incumbent worker training. On the job training allows local employers to hire and train skilled workers and receive reimbursement for their wages while they're in the training period. So the on-the-job training specialists at CEFS will help eligible candidates get ready for the training. Through assistance from SEFs, local employers receive reimbursement for the wages during that defined training period. So to be clear, while the new hire is working and training for occupation-specific skills, the employer receives reimbursement for the wages. Yes, you did not mishear me. This allows employers to reduce the risk associated with new hire training costs and offer a higher starting wage to incentivize retention of new hires. The employee themselves also receives other supportive services like transportation reimbursement, childcare assistance, and other support to overcome any barriers to employment that they may face. So everyone wins in this situation. The big way that this differs from incumbent worker training is that it is for new hires. So they do have to be onboarded before their official start date with the local employer. And this one, it does depend on the eligibility of the actual new hire, the individual, because we're offering a holistic approach at supporting them. We're also looking at all the barriers that they may face. And traditionally that could be they're socioeconomically disadvantaged. They may be an individual with disabilities. They may be a veteran or a single parent. There's many different ways that we could identify them as facing barriers or obstacles. And we really take a case management approach in helping them overcome that. So if you hire an individual that is facing barriers and they are eligible for WIOA services, then we reimburse you up to 75% of their wages while they're in that training. And again, you determine what the training is, you determine how long the training takes. We just are there to help provide support for that individual and reimburse you for their salary while they are working. So go ahead, advance slide, and we'll talk about youth work experience. This one is one of my favorites. This is employability skills training. It provides young adults with the opportunity to develop employability skills, enhance their career readiness, and cultivate occupation-specific skills. So CEFS provides career coaching and assists young adults in the placement at a local employer. And then they pay the participants wages while they work for you at your own organization. So if you elect to be a youth work site, you commit to mentoring and training young adults at no cost to you. SEFS becomes the employer of record, which means that they pay the employee. They take care of workers' comp and unemployment insurance costs as well. So it is no cost to you. You are simply supervising and molding and shaping, preparing this young adult for the future workforce. So this is a great program to help prepare a whole new generation for the workforce. And it also gives you, the local employer, the ability to train them without incurring the costs normally associated with a new hire. We've all heard stories about recent high school graduates not possessing the best soft skills, as they're called. Maybe they need to work on improving communication skills. Sometimes they need to work on basic things like punctuality, reliability, integrity. So youth who participate in this program benefit from having incentivized practice, and local businesses benefit from having additional help in potentially molding a future full-time employee. Sounds a little too good to be true, but it's not. It is 100% real. We do it all the time. It is a wonderful program, and we're always looking for more youth worksite hosts. So go ahead and advance the slide, and then I'm going to have Nate go into a more deep dive into apprenticeships, and he's going to refer back to some of those programs that I've already mentioned. So Nate, take it away.
Thank you very much, Jamie, and thanks again to the Business Navigator Alliance for asking us to speak today. Very excited to talk about all of the opportunities represented by registered apprenticeships in our area, and as Jamie said, do a deeper dive. If you're like me, before I started this role, when I heard the word apprenticeship, what came to mind was like a 1600s blacksmith or union trade labor or Star Wars. But apprenticeships are in fact a very contemporary modern workforce solution. And if there's a solution, then we should talk about what the problems we're seeing currently are. On some of those common pain points, I'm sure you're all aware of. There's a lot of unfilled job openings, not just at the entry level in a lot of industries, but also there are vacancies that maybe require higher level credentials or training that companies are having a really tough time filling. And they're seeing a loss of productivity on that. We're seeing a lot of high turnover and low retention rates among employers, the great resignation as it's being called. And part of the impetus for that low retention is desire on the part of employees to see a clear advancement path within their organization. Companies are desiring to increase the levels of opportunity they can make to their employees and increase diversity of their workforce, or just to build a stronger company culture, which in turn would improve those retention rates. What we're going to see is all of these common pain points really are addressed by the apprenticeship model in a really meaningful way. And it's the solution that every industry and every company should be considering as a means of meeting those pain points. Next slide, please. So when we talk about apprenticeships, what we're talking about is an earn and learn model. And what does that look like? Well, there are 5 components that make up every registered apprenticeship. And I cannot stress enough that in spite of the fact that these programs are registered with the Department of Labor, business involvement is key. My role is to be a liaison and a consultant, but I work with our businesses, with their executives, with their HR professionals, with the supervisors every step of the way, because you know your industry, you know your business, and you know the roles that you're looking to fill with apprenticeship better than I certainly ever could. And so by making sure businesses stay involved from the beginning to the end of that process, we're really able to deliver on incredibly intricately customized programs that meet the needs of each individual employer. So when we talk about earning and learning, there's 2 components of that learning, right? There's a learning component that happens on the job with a one-on-one mentor, and there's learning that happens in a classroom of some kind. It doesn't necessarily have to be a college provider. It can be, a industry-specific training provider, but just so long as there is that 2 components, the on-the-job learning and related learning happening in a classroom of some kind, that's what we're looking at. Apprentices, when they move through their program, they earn progressive wage increases. So what that means is they start at a percentage of whatever the journey worker rate for their role is. So let's say journey workers in your company earn $27 an hour. The apprentice is going to start out making $19 an hour, and they're going to meet certain thresholds that will either be competency-based or time-based, which means, we'll say year 1, they're making $19 an hour. Year 2, they're going to bump up to $21 an hour. Year 3, they're going to bump up to $24 an hour, and so on. Or like I said, they can be competency-based. So when you have mastered this, and this skill, you will have shown to us that you're worthy of moving up to that next pay increase level. And the apprentice knows all of that going in. They know what's expected of them, and they know what they will be rewarded for meeting those competencies and showing that skill mastery. And all apprentices receive a nationally recognized occupational credential. And that's going to look a little different for every industry and every occupation. It can be a degree, a certificate, a license of some kind, whatever piece of paper or like license in your industry that says to employers, I have gained the mastery of a skill set necessary to complete these job functions. And apprenticeships are somewhat of an investment on the employer, in part because that related classroom instruction, the employer is funding. So they're paying for the student to go to class to earn that those skills in the classroom and on the job. But what that investment does is it really pays off in terms of reducing that turnover and increasing productivity, because you have the best of both worlds in this employee. You have them receiving mentorship on the job and developing those on the job competencies while also receiving the best classroom learning. And so they're applying theory and practice all at once in this learning process. And so the bottom line is being improved and productivity is being improved. Next slide. And so it's obvious what the benefit to employees is, to the apprentices is, they're getting their education paid for, they're getting a great wage and a career path for themselves. But what are the benefits to employers? Employers say, okay, that sounds great for them. What do I get? Well, the average ROI for apprenticeship is $1.50 on the dollar. So that's a very stable investment. And obviously, there are components of that investment that aren't entirely quantifiable. For instance, the benefits to company culture, the benefits to the mentors you assign for your apprentices. It's very easily for journey workers in all industries to get burnt out or to feel like they themselves have kind of gotten stuck in terms of their career progression. Having that responsibility of mentorship is a way to revitalize those workers, give them a new sense of purpose, give them a sense of responsibility within your organization. So it doesn't just ultimately the dividends that are paid by apprenticeships aren't just the fact that, yeah, there is that $1.50 on the dollar, but in terms of your company culture you're developing, it's going to cultivate a lot of success and productivity there as well. Additionally, for every active apprentice a company has per year, they'll receive a tax credit of $3,500 to $5,000. What that's meant to do is to kind of ease that burden of that investment on educational expenses. The idea being that if you're putting a student through a certificate program at a local community college or a CDL program or whatever the applicable training is, that tax credit kind of helps to even out that investment and make it as net neutral expense as possible. Additionally, we've talked about how there aren't just vacancies at the entry level, but there's also a lot of mid-level, very technical positions that companies are having a hard time trying to fill. And what apprenticeship allows you to do is take those employees you have at the entry level who have the drive, who have the passion, who want to see it pass for themselves in your company, and you're able to upskill them into those tough vacancy positions. And you're saying, oh, upskilling, that reminds me of something I heard Jamie talk about a little while ago. And yeah, that's where those incumbent worker training funds come into play. So not only are you going to receive that $3,500 to $5,000 tax credit to offset those education expenses, but you are also eligible for us to pay up to $20,000 per company per fiscal year for you upskilling those employees. So it really becomes a fantastic opportunity to take those entry-level workers and move them to the next level. And then what are you going to do with all those entry-level positions? Well, how about you get some youth work experience candidates in there, and those are getting their wages reimbursed to you through SEFs. So there really is a great way to just revitalize your entire, not org structure maybe, but just the way you're doing recruitment and do it for way less. And again, there's the potential for wage reimbursement as well if your apprenticeship candidates are new hires, if they are external recruits and they meet those SEF eligibility, then yeah, they're going to be eligible for 75% wage reimbursement in addition to that $3,500 tax credit. And when you hear apprenticeship, again, we tend to think of the trades, but really, apprenticeship can be applied across industries. There are currently over 1,300 different registered apprenticeship roles, and that again includes healthcare, information technology, the trades, transportation, manufacturing. I always say everything from aviator to zoologist, there's an apprenticeship program for. We've been working for the last few months developing programs with companies, and we have not found a role yet that there was not an existing apprenticeship program for. And again, people say, oh, okay, this all sounds fantastic, Nate, but I need to work with the federal government like I need a hole in the head. And that's where I come in. It is my job to make the process completely stress-free. I get the migraines, not you. I handle the paperwork, of which there is actually surprisingly little. It's an incredibly streamlined process. They've made it really easy, and I do all of the hard part. So my goal is to make this process as quickly as possible. And I tell you right now, well, I'll end the process a little bit later in the slides, but if you met with me or someone from your organization met with me next week, by the end of July, easily, you could have your program completely registered. And by August, you could have an apprentice starting. That's how streamlined this process is. Next slide. So that's registered apprenticeship, but registered apprenticeship isn't the only model that employers have available to them. There's also a model called youth apprenticeship. And all of the things I just talked about with registered apprenticeship, the earning and learning, the on-the-job mentorship, the tax credit, that applies to youth apprenticeship as well. The only difference is with a youth apprentice, that individual starts the apprenticeship while they're in high school and then continues into it after completing their high school diploma. And these were really designed to work alongside existing high school co-op programs, but they're not limited to that function. And so, like I said, the apprentices are hired on while they're in high school. Maybe they work part-time hours, they take relevant dual credit coursework. Once they graduate, they move into that local community college degree program or certificate program, and then they start their full-time work. And again, there is the tax credit available, but that only is going to come into play once the employer begins incurring those educational expenses. And what this really does is it helps to catch that local talent before they leave the area. A lot of people young people in high school, they don't know what's out there in terms of the career paths that are available to them in their communities. Apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship especially can take those individuals and say, hey, you want to do engineering? There is a manufacturer who will pay for you to go get your engineering degree and pay you $80,000 a year when you finish this program. And they're saying, what? I don't have to move to California or New York or wherever else to do this job I really want to do? And all of a sudden you're taking that talent that would have been lost to the local workforce and you're keeping it right here by making that investment. And that doesn't just start at the high school level. Next slide, please. Pre-apprenticeship, and this one's really exciting. So registered apprenticeship and youth apprenticeship, those are registered with DOL and they have those incentives. Pre-apprenticeship is really any sort of part-time work or internship or job shadow experience or dual credit coursework, any career education experience that can build towards an apprenticeship program, youth or regular. That's what we would call a pre-apprenticeship. So what I've started telling people is stop using the word internship, forget the word internship, start using the word pre-apprenticeship. And pre-apprenticeship doesn't have to start when students are in high school. Pre-apprenticeship can start at the elementary level. If you're going out into schools or taking, elementary school classes on field trips through your plant, that's pre-apprenticeship. So long as you maintain that consistent level of engagement, you're developing that talent pipeline from that young age. And pre-apprenticeship is really great for, cultivating that workforce in your area. So these programs aren't registered and they're not incentivized. You're not going to get the tax credit, for instance, for doing a pre-apprenticeship. However, I am still available to help you develop these programs and, utilizing existing workforce educational data, we can absolutely do that. And like I said, I'm a consultant for these kinds of programs as well. And the goal of pre-apprenticeship is to successfully perform outreach to individuals and institutions to tell them who you are, what you do, and how they can be a part of it, how they can build a career path for themselves working with your company. And so it's all educational. All about this, again, it's at the heart of earning and learning. We see that developed in pre-apprenticeships and youth apprenticeships, as well as the general registered apprenticeship programs. Next slide. When it comes to the education component of registered apprenticeships, LWIA 23 is housed at Lakeland College, but what we like to say is we're kind of like Switzerland. And what that means is, like I said before, how we won't tell you what your apprentice has to learn, what courses they have to take, where they have to go. We also won't tell you where they have to go to school. These are the education partners that we work with who are within the region: Eastern, Lakeland, Albany Central, the IECC schools, IMEC, SIU, Kaskaskia. And we're not limited to these partners, but we are not limited to Lakeland College's borders. And, we work closely with the schools within LWIA 23's borders in a variety of capacities. And so we have strong relationships developed there, and we're able to really provide customizable programs. So if you are looking at a certificate program for your apprentice and you say, hey, some of this coursework that's in the certificate or this degree program, I don't really like this. Can we substitute something else for it? We can work with those educational providers a lot of the time to provide those substitutions and really devise a customized training regimen for your apprentices. Next slide. So what does this process look like? You've heard about the incentives, you've heard about, all these great things. You think, okay, what does this actually look like? Well, here's the paperwork. One, we have a document called a work process schedule, and this is going to get in a little bit in the weeds, but stay with me here because I really want to show you just how streamlined this process is. The work process schedule is just a packet that says, A, what the apprentice is going to learn on the job, all of the competencies listed out for the role they're fulfilling, and B, what classes they're going to take in a classroom setting, and where they're going to take them. So it's taking that learning component of the earning and learning, and it's just putting it all on paper so that the apprentice knows from day one and the employer knows from day one, here are the competencies that are expected of me. Here's what I'm going to learn in a classroom setting, the classes I'm expected to pass. Here's the certificate or degree or license I'm going to be earning. That's all agreed upon and it's on paper. The second component is just the boilerplate agreement that goes on top of all that. And what that includes is that wage schedule we talked about. Here's what I'm going to start at. Here's what my wage is going to be when I reach that journey worker level at the end of my apprenticeship. Here are the increments along the way and what I have to do to earn those incremental raises. And the journey worker to apprentice ratio. And this becomes especially important if you're in an industry that's going to be involved with like prevailing wage issues. The apprentice to journey worker ratio is important to maintain in those instances. Generally, it's going to be something like 1-to-1. You may have trades where it's going to be something like 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, but on a prevailing wage job site, so long as the ratio that you have agreed upon of journey workers to apprentices is maintained, those apprentices can be paid their apprentice wage rather than the prevailing wage. And then you're going to sign off on it. And important to know about apprenticeships is it does not remove your right as the employer as being in a right to work state. So you have the ability to dismiss, fire that apprentice at any time. They also have the ability to walk out at any time. What we will say though, is that does not completely leave you holding the bag if your apprentice ditches the program. Apprentices are responsible for a prorated amount of whatever schooling costs they have incurred that they do not complete based on exiting the program early. The steps to registering, we do an initial consultation and paperwork. I love to do these in person, one, because it gets me out of the office, and two, because I love to see the facilities and meet with your supervisors, learn more about your company culture and the roles you're looking to fill. Based off that meeting, we take these work process schedules and develop them. We do follow-up revisions over Zoom, and then we send it off to our Department of Labor representative. So it's an incredibly streamlined process that's applicable to all occupations and all industries. And we're really excited to move these along. Next slide. So when we revisit these common pain points we saw at the beginning of my portion of the presentation, we see that apprenticeships are the modern workforce solution to fill these needs. Those job openings you have, I'll tell you this, if you have an apprenticeship job opening where you're telling a prospective applicant that you're going to pay for their school, you're going to pay them a journey worker wage, you're going to make that investment in them, that's going to look better than competitive pay commensurate with experience on that Indeed posting. And you're going to spend a lot less time on average recruiting for that position than you would be otherwise. High turnover and retention rates. If I know on a tough day at my job that if I stick this out, I'm going to earn this credential, I'm going to be making this high competitive wage, I'm going to stick with it compared to somebody who doesn't know that, who doesn't have that assurance of their career path within a company. And similarly, there could not be more transparency about an advancement path within a company culture than apprenticeship, because an apprentice knows here's where I'm going to be when I end this program. And the retention rate for registered apprenticeships is something like 97% completion. So all of these and the opportunities to build diversity and opportunity within your workforce, the opportunity to upskill those entry-level employers who are showing that promise. Apprenticeships really are the solution to the workforce problems that are plaguing our communities right now. And I hope you're excited to work with me and to work with Jamie and all of us here at LWIA 23 and SEPS to provide these opportunities in our communities and make every one of our institutions stronger. Next slide. And I will turn it back over to Jamie to talk about some general LWIA 23 accomplishments.
Thanks, Nate. Awesome. All right, so I'm just real quick, couple minutes just to show you some of the stuff we've already done and how we are making a difference in the local workforce. So from July 2020 to June 21, we served 489 participants, individuals, that was job seekers in the area. We helped serve them to get the skills they needed. In that same time period, we put 423 of those job seekers through actual training. So it was not just education, but on the job training. Advanced slide, please. During that time, we also put in $1.5 million of funding across those 13 counties that we serve. So that's a nice little chunk of change going back into the communities. And advanced slide, please. So we keep talking about like who wins. Everyone's winning, all the winners. Everybody's a winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. The job seekers, they're winning because they're getting opportunities they didn't have before. The employers are winning because they're getting skilled workers and assistance with training costs. The training providers are winning because they're getting the new enrollees. They're able to serve a broader market now. And then the communities in general are winning because we're strengthening our local economy. Advanced slide, please. So LWIA 23 is a proud partner of the American Job Center Network and the Illinois WorkNet Center. We are also a partner of Apprenticeship Illinois as well. So in addition to the services that we provide that Nate and I have gone over today, we have connections to other services as well. Virtual job fairs, Illinois Job Link, any outreach to individuals who are unemployment or who are seeking employment. We can work with any of our partners to provide services to you. Advanced slide, please. So it's us again. I want to thank you so much for your time today and for your interest in WIOA services, including apprenticeships. So just again, my name is Jamie Corda-Hadjaoui. You also heard from Nate Carlson today. Feel free to contact us with any questions or concerns you have, ideas. Our email addresses and phone numbers are listed here, and I believe you will receive copies of this slide deck after the event. If not, screenshot it now and then feel free to reach out to us at any time. And then check out our social media as well, LWIA 23 on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and we have a YouTube channel as well. And we have the Workforce Innovation News podcast, WIN. Just Google search WIN in Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts from, and listen to some of our really awesome episodes. Advanced slide, please. That should be centered, but questions or discussion?
I see we have one in the chat from Bill. He says, does having a certified youth apprenticeship allow for high school students who are under 18 to bypass some of the liability insurance issues that some industries have? And the answer is generally no, but kinda. So in terms of issues where someone under the 18 is just not allowed to do a certain task in that occupation, that's not going to be a workaround for that. What I will say, however, is we talk about pre-apprenticeships. There's nothing that says that youth work experience offered by CEFs could not count as a pre-apprenticeship. And in a youth work experience, CEFs is operating as the employer of record, and they pay the workman's comp insurance, and they would be the liable entity. So if you're interested in having individuals under the age of 18 be a part of these kinds of apprenticeship programs, what I would say is rather than pursuing youth apprenticeship immediately, if you have these concerns about liability insurance, if you have individuals in mind specifically, or if you're working with local high schools, have them fill out a CEF's WIOA eligibility application. And if they're determined to be eligible, you can have that pipeline developed without those liability insurance concerns. And then once they're 18, you can move them into that registered apprenticeship program and begin earning those incentives.
Great, thanks. Any other questions out there? We did have one in the chat that we can go ahead and share with everyone. Robert asked if there was an annual cap on the youth program, and Jamie said there is no dollar cap, but the participant maxes out at 29 hours a week and 364 days in a year. She said that CEFs pays at least $14 an hour, but will match the amount the employer pays if it's above 14. We've got another question coming in. Do you apply for the apprenticeships through the SEF's website?
So my role specifically is to develop apprenticeships through the registration process. When it comes to recruitment, companies can work with SEFs in addition to the general outreach they already do, and I'm happy to meet with them to strategize about what recruitment looks like in terms of partnering with local educational partners. But you don't apply for apprenticeships specifically through the SEF's website. If a company has an apprentice in mind that they want to hire, it's always a good idea to have that individual fill out a SEF's WIOA application to determine if they're eligible for that wage reimbursement. But that's not, they would still apply for apprenticeship through their employer. And then and then there's an additional, some paperwork to be done for that in terms of getting the apprentice on board with DOL, but that's incredibly minor. It's like a one sheet, and it's mostly just agreeing to what the employer has already agreed to in the registration process, but on the apprentice end. Great question.
Great. Yep. Anyone else? Well, it's been terrific information today, again, from both of you. And, you know, even something that I hadn't thought of before that you mentioned, Nate, you know, kind of stacking the program. So as an apprentice is moving through the apprenticeship program and advancing in their career, then backfilling that with the youth program. I mean, that's a great idea that hadn't occurred to me before, but it's a way to continue to develop that pipeline of workers that everyone in every industry so desperately needs.
Well, and there's nothing that says an apprentice can't complete multiple apprenticeships. One of our most greatest success stories in the area in terms of apprenticeship has been North American Lighting, and they have moved individuals up through multiple apprenticeships into their high-level engineering roles. So you can have someone complete an apprenticeship that takes them from entry-level to mid-level employee, and then immediately thereafter move them into a second apprenticeship or third that just keeps moving them up the chain and keeps earning those credentials and building their skill sets. So it really can entirely like revolutionize the way you do upskilling and promotion in your organization.
Yeah. I don't see any other questions in chat. One last shot if there's anything else that's occurred to anyone. We'll go ahead and call that a wrap then. We're almost at the 11:31 hour mark. So again, I want to thank everyone for attending today on behalf of all of my partners in the Navigator group, and remind you that we do have these webinars the last Thursday of every month, unless there's a holiday that forces us to move that. And we're working on the July webinar, which should be around July 28th. We're going to feature a series then where we feature businesses that were able to sort of reimagine and pivot what they were doing during the pandemic. And then we're able to find success through that kind of resiliency. So that series is still under development, should happen right around July 28th. So continue to check back to our website. And we thank you for joining us today. Hopefully you've found something useful for your business.